works. Can you hear me? Yeah. So, thanks for coming. Let me adjust it. This is the first time I'm coming here in Malaysia with a different t-shirt. Usually I'm here with a black Zone H t-shirt. But this year, as I was involved in this new project, some of you might be able to, you were able to read from the newspapers about this new project, which is related to an exploit marketplace. And so don't consider me Roberto Preatoni of Zone H now, consider me Roberto Preatoni of WabiSabiLabi, which is a separate project from Zone H, and they are not sharing actually anything. You don't find anything of WabiSabiLabi on Zone H and vice versa. The only link, actually, it's me. And my position in this new project as strategic director, it's a quite challenging position as since we started, and the baby there means that it's a fresh project. We started 2 months ago, and immediately we were expecting, of course, some attention, but not so much attention. We had newspaper interviewing us. Some of them, they were telling our project was great. It was just about the right time to do it. Some other, and we will see why, they were criticizing our project very much. We have been, we were capable to hit The Economist printed edition, Forbes. We have been approached by venture capitalists. So this project raised a big fuzz. And I wanted to come here to explain to you a little bit about it. Also because sometimes on the newspapers, you didn't read precisely the truth. Our, let's say, statements, they were reported in the wrong way. I don't know if with purpose or without purpose, but definitely it is a project that needs to be clarified. So what we want to do, it is to find as many interfaces as possible with the general public, like this conference, in which we will transfer our idea, and we are welcoming you actually to criticize the project in a constructive way, so that we might be able over the time to improve it. Now, what is it? It's an exploit marketplace. As you see from behind, we have an auction site, pretty much the same as eBay. And in this auction site, the security researchers are capable to put their own discoveries on sale to look for the better bidder. Why we did it? Well, think about yourself. You are here because you are somewhat involved into the security business, the security market. So my question to you, it is, do you agree with me, yes or no, that there is a security market and the market is big? Yes or no? Raise your hand, yes? Okay. Now, the entire security market, it's based on the fact that there are vulnerabilities. No vulnerabilities, no security market, no security business. Roberto wasn't here. You weren't here. Without vulnerabilities, there is no need of security. So the assumption, the basic assumption behind the project, it is, if there is a big market which is totally based on the vulnerabilities, why the hell the vulnerabilities are not valued properly? This is an anomaly that must be corrected. It doesn't exist in any other field, business field in the world, such anomaly. Only in the software and in the hardware industry. We will see why such anomaly is existing, and we will see how the security researchers have been abused over the time by the industry. Now, you go on Wikipedia and you look for a definition of a market. What is a market? Let's take half a minute to read it. A market is a social arrangement that allows buyers and sellers to discover information and carry out a voluntary exchange of goods and services. It is one of the two key institutions that organize trade, along with the right to own property. In everyday usage, the word market may refer to the location where goods are traded, sometimes known as marketplace, or to a street market. The function of a market requires, at the minimum, that both parties expect to become better off as a result of the transaction. Markets generally rely on a price adjustment to provide information to parties engaging in a transaction, so that each may accurately gauge to subsequent change of their welfare. Now, let's highlight some words. Think about the security market today. Is it based on voluntary exchange between discoverers and buyers? No. You are forced, as a security researcher, to accept the rules dictated by the buyers today. There is no market. There is a location. Is there any location where the goods, the software, the vulnerabilities are traded? No. So we cannot call it a market. Are both parties expecting to become better off as a result of the transaction, relying maybe on price adjustments? No. There is a monopoly. The few organizations who are buying from security researchers are somewhat teaming up in keeping the price as low as possible. Let's not talk about the vendors who are not even buying at all. They want to get the work for free. We will see why. So, as none of these whereases are present today, we cannot really say that there is a market. That's why we were thinking, well, there is a need of a market, and we will do a market. And let's see what's going on. Now, a few words about the name, WabiSabiLabi. Some newspapers, they were writing incredible things on the name. Why did we call it WabiSabiLabi? Well, it's interesting. In Japanese language, wabi-sabi, it's the concept of the cycle of continuous improvement, which is never ending. It means perfection never exists, but you can apply yourself to do better and better, typically Japanese. Such term, it doesn't exist in the Western culture. It's expressed only in Japanese. So we decided to take it from the Japanese. Wabi-sabi, which is this thing, it's the concept. Labi means laboratories, of course. As I am Rob, as a name, I wanted to call it WabiSabiLabi, but then our sales department started to scream, so we decided to go for the Labi. Now, you also have to think three-dimensionals. Do you understand that the security market is United States-centric? Why the hell? It's totally against the concept of the internet. Internet means globalization, no boundaries. So let's think three-dimensional. And one US guy working for a big security company told me, but you know, it doesn't mean anything in English, this thing. I say, so what? It means for Japanese. And after I'm explaining to you the meaning, now it means something for you as well. A bit of history. When security researchers started to look for vulnerabilities, in the early 90s, let's say, when the industry started, after they found a vulnerability and they got in contact with a vendor, usually what they got in exchange wasn't a thank you, wasn't a handshake, wasn't a beer. It was just a letter coming from the lawyer of the software producer saying, hey, don't do it again. We will do some bad things to you. Legal threats. Then in 1993, fortunately, the hacker community started to talk about the full disclosure. Okay, the vendors are threatening the researchers. Oh, we don't take any more contact with the vendors. From now on, we will inform the public about the existence of a vulnerability. Then the vendors, they are forced to produce patches. So we had, up to 2003, the full disclosure practice, but still some legal threats. And actually, personally, I remember in case of a Microsoft product. I was releasing an advisory in year 2003, and I got a letter from the lawyer, from Microsoft lawyer. Fortunately, it doesn't happen anymore. On the contrary, today Microsoft has moved in the opposite direction. Microsoft today, as personal experience, is keen to meet the hackers, to talk to them, and they're very much welcoming the improvement the hackers are bringing to their own product. Of course, they're doing it for free. Then from 2002 to 2007, some vulnerability purchasing projects started, like Tipping Point, iDefense, not very many. And only in 2007, an open marketplace appeared, which is WabiSabiLabi. Why we did it? First of all, if you are a security researcher today, before WabiSabiLabi, you are subject to the following things. Ethical blackmailing. You discover something, and then people that come to tell you, hey, this vulnerability is affecting an operating system which is mounted on 1.5 billion of computers. Do you understand how critical is this? You should give it for free. And shut up. Don't even dare to ask for a rewarding. Give it for free. Who is doing it? Who is telling you this? Usually the software producer. Or the concept is distributed through the press, which is lobbied. Not all the press, but some press. It's a lobbied press. There is a wrong set of laws. If you're doing security research, in most of the countries, you're a criminal. In Germany, since a few months ago, if you just possess a legal piece of software for penetration testing, you're a criminal. This law doesn't have any sense because all the security companies in Germany need to have security tools, which are hacker tools. They use it for good purposes. And nevertheless, they are considered by the law criminal. There is an abused de facto position. We have a monopolistic position where few vendors and few big security companies are dictating the rules, the behavioral rules. If you are a security researcher, the rules are these, and these, and you should behave as we want, not as you want. And the last point, which is the most important, there is a basic misconception of the security researcher's role. Hackers. Raul before was talking about hackers, and he was telling, well, the good hackers. Still, we are in the need to distinguish between good and bad hackers. Security researchers, those who are finding vulnerabilities, are perceived usually by the common press as bad guys because they're doing something they shouldn't do. How do you dare to put your nose in such operating system? You shouldn't. So we wouldn't like to use, and I will never use, under this project, the word hacker. I would like to use the right word, which is security researcher. There is no difference between the security researcher who is discovering a vulnerability in a certain operating system and the researcher in a chemical company who is discovering a drug for, I don't know, influence. They are scientists on their own matter. Of course, the hacker may be a little bit weird, no? Might be a bit fat, no? Long hair, a can of beer in his hand. This is the typical image the people they have about the hackers. But what they're doing is just pure research, and it should be treated in the same way. Now, think about any kind of researcher in the chemical industry. They are discovering a new drug. Maybe it's a medicine which is saving lives of millions of people. We are talking about lives here. Is anybody daring to say, hey, what did you just discover? It's saving lives. You should give it for free. Nobody. And it's commonly accepted. Sorry? You will tell me later.
For example, gold price, you have to give in advance your research for free to have the license to use all the technology that are attached to the research.
In medicine. countries where genetic research is patentable, not in Italy, for example. You're talking about US, for example. But I'm talking about medicines. Now, if you discover a medicine, you can patent it, and nobody is giving you, telling you, hey, you have to give it for free because it's saving lives. Only in the software industry, you do a research, and then you're forced to give it for free because it's ethical. Now, what the newspapers that were writing about our project was also WabiSabiLabi is a marketplace in which the security researchers are placing their own vulnerability discoveries, rather than giving such discoveries to the black market, to the criminal market. But is there any of such criminal market? Yes or no? Maybe it's not true. Well, if you just take RFC 4948, in the same RFC, there is a statement about the black market. You just go on any IRC big network, on NetNet, for example. I know some channels, key protected, in which malware is traded between producers or software discoverers, researchers, and criminals who are buying it because on such malware they're basing their own crimes. So there is a black market. And how much money are making such security researchers who are selling to the black market? Definitely much more money than if they were selling the research to the current security companies who are paying you maybe $500, $1,000, $5,000 if you are very much lucky, but nothing else. You make one sale to them and that's it. But if you sell to criminals, you can do multiple sales and you sell it for much, much more. It's more profitable. So there is a black market. And by introducing an open market in which the security researchers can properly value their own discoveries, we hope actually to decrease the way the black market appeals to the security researcher. Definitely not all of them will adopt our system, but maybe some of them. Now, in our business model, we want to compare our business model with the rest. This slide is talking about the marketplace itself. How does it work? The security researcher gives us the vulnerability they found. We test it in our laboratories. We must be sure, actually, that what is traded on the platform, it's really working. We implement it with some more scientific paper. We just don't give a piece of code, no? And you know, security researchers are good in finding vulnerabilities, but then if they have to fill a report on what they're doing, they're quite lazy. But who is buying want to have a full report on the vulnerability. How does it work? How it can be implemented? Very nice description. So that's our job, the part which is introduced by our laboratories. Once the vulnerability it is packaged, it is placed on the marketplace. And it can be sold in several ways. As an auction, so the discoverer will sell it to the best bidder, only one sale. Or it can be sold at a fixed price, but to many people, to as many people as possible. Dutch auction, it means we have this vulnerability and we will sell it only to the first best 10 or 5 or whatever bidders. So there is only a limited amount of such vulnerability. We have a buy now, like in eBay, option. If you click it, you don't participate into the auction. You just buy the item, but so you're sure that you're getting it if you are in a hurry. Because, for example, the auction time, it is usually 2 weeks. And if you are a security company and you need that exploit because you want to do penetration test on your client system and you need it now, if you click on the buy now option, you are able to get immediately the product. But you pay much more, of course. Or you can click on buy exclusively, so you will be the only owner in the world having such vulnerability. Not even our company can use such vulnerability inside services that I will explain later on. Take the traditional WabiSabiLabi competitors, for example, iDefense, Pinpoint, those vulnerability purchase programs, and let's compare them. We do multiple sales. They don't. What does it mean? Through our marketplace, the researcher is not selling once. The researcher can sell 10 times, 100 times, to as many people as they need to buy that particular security research. With the competitors, you sell the vulnerability along with the property rights to the company, and that's it. You cash only once. Revenue sharing. We do revenue sharing. The marketplace is one thing, but then we have a database of exploit. What to do with such exploit? Well, let's build such side services like a vulnerability sharing club or an early warning system. You have a company, a big company, they need to be warned as soon as a vulnerability is coming out on their own systems. They don't have the time to browse the internet. And anyway, what you find on the internet, it's only related to known vulnerabilities, not to unknown vulnerabilities. So they subscribe to our service. We get a fee, and part of the fee, it is returned to the security researchers on which research our program is based. So they cash from the marketplace, but they can keep cashing also from the sales of our side services, which is good. You can make an honest living out of it. You can even decide just to do this in your life as a profession. The other vendors, they do responsible disclosure, and we don't. I have a slide later to tell you why we don't do this responsible disclosure. We do, instead, free public warning, and they don't. What do I mean? When you go to WabiSabi website, there is the marketplace, and you don't need to buy anything to be warned about the existence of a new vulnerability. You don't need to subscribe to any service. It's for free. You just open the web page and you see, Linux kernel version, blah, 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 such vulnerability. It's my operating system. Oh, Jesus, I'm in trouble. That's for free. With other vendors, it doesn't happen. To be warned, you have to pay. And then, our marketplace has a 360 degrees of interest in the sense that if you are a security researcher and you discover a vulnerability in a particular system, if you try to sell it to the traditional security vendors, if such system is not related to their own client system, they are not buying it from you. They tell you, I'm sorry, I don't know what to do with such vulnerability. We are not interested. Through our marketplace, you might be able to find in the world some security companies, for example, they have a client having such system. They might be interested to buy such vulnerabilities because it makes economical sense for them. So it's increasing the chances for the security researchers to find a buyer. Otherwise, they would have to accept the rules established by the current players of the market. In this sense, when we talk about our business model, we used to say that you can squeeze the lemon twice. You can cash by selling your research through our marketplace, and you can keep cashing money as long as we sell side services. And this can last as long as 1 year, for example, for a single vulnerability. And if you think that a single vulnerability can be even sold through the marketplace to maybe 100 different people, then you understand why it might make more sense for a security researcher to use our marketplace rather than the competitors' vulnerabilities acquisition programs. Now, always the newspaper. We don't think, some of the newspaper, we don't think that this initiative is very much ethical, because I am now stripping out some newspaper declarations. WabiSabiLabi might be the front end of a criminal organization. We don't know these guys. Well, I'm here. I put my face. I decided to in the beginning, as I was actually managing Zone H, the agreement with the other people in the company was that I hadn't to become public. My face should be hidden. But then I was thinking, okay, but who the hell are the other guys? The other guys are unknown people. I am the only one known because I'm doing conferences. So I took the opposite decision. I said, okay, let's clarify they are two separate projects, but my face is here. I'm not a criminal organization. There are not unknown people. There is a company. You can visit the laboratories any moment. It's based in Switzerland. It's there as a physical location. It's just not a legal entity. People are working there. Come and visit us, you journalists. They cannot vet properly the buyers. Oh yes, because the other vendors, they do vet the buyers. Try to buy a service from, I don't know, Tipping Point or VeriSign or whatever. They will sell it to you. You just pay and you will get it. Do they vet you? No, they don't vet you actually. We do some vetting instead. We will see later what kind of vetting we do. They are not warning the vendor. Responsible disclosure. Again, we have a slide later. Why we are not warning the vendor? They are blackmailing the vendors, and that's the best part. You have to know that we started to talk about this initiative 1.5 years ago. 1.5 years ago. It took 6 months to start it up, which was the last 6 months of our, let's say, operation before becoming public. And before that, it took 1 year just to talk to lawyers. We were talking to lawyers in 3 different countries. One thing the lawyers, they told us, it was, you cannot warn the vendor. I was immediately saying, hey, listen, but we have this vulnerability. It is placed on the market. It should be nice if we would allow the vendor to have the last word anyway, regardless the price, or even if the vulnerability auction is closed. From the moment it is closed, we must have a bonus period in which the vendor can decide to buy the vulnerability at the price that it was decided from the market, of course. And it was logical to me, but it wasn't logical to the lawyers. They told me, no, my friend, if you do something like that, that's blackmailing. I understand that you don't want to do some blackmailing, but from certain courts, it could be interpreted as blackmailing, so you don't have to do it. So we decided not to do it. But on the newspapers, immediately they were writing, they're not doing it. So they are blackmailing the vendors because they are not offering to the vendor the possibility to buy it out. So either we were doing it or not, we were accused of blackmailing anyway. And this is quite interesting to me. I don't know how it will end, but it's quite interesting to see. And then they tell, WabiSabiLabi, it's a place from which the criminals, they can buy exploits for criminal purposes. This is pure bullshit. First of all, we are vetting people. Again, we will see how. Second, there is already a black market. You don't need to refer to WabiSabiLabi. If you want to buy from security researchers who are willing to sell to criminals, they already have the system how to do it. They don't need to wait for such a marketplace. And the rules we put in place, they're quite restrictive. So why they should undergo such process of verification of our marketplace when they can buy it anonymously from the black market? There is no sense in such phrase. Now, this is the responsible disclosure. What does it mean, responsible disclosure? We don't do responsible disclosure, and we were accused by the media. Responsible disclosure means me, big software security vendor, I'm buying from him the security research related to his software. So what I'm going to do, as long as I obtain such research, I inform the vendor about the vulnerability existence, and I don't inform the public until a patch is produced. It sounds good. It sounds good, but it's not good. Why? Because you can be warned, actually, about such vulnerability if you pay. The companies who are paying the software security vendors, they are warned, but not the rest of the world. The rest of the world still is vulnerable until a patch is released. I don't think this is nice. Through our project, you find immediately on the marketplace the news about the existence of all the vulnerabilities which are passing in our hands. And you can understand immediately if such vulnerabilities are related to your own system or to somebody else's system. You are warned, and it is for free. Everybody is warned. The full world is warned. But with the traditional business model of the previous vendors, only the paying customer. So I don't think this is very much ethical. I think our system is more ethical. We warn everybody for free. That's why we are not adopting the responsible disclosure. And another question, but why you should warn the vendor because it's ethical. No, we are just a marketplace. When a security researcher is giving the research to us, we ask him, do you want the vendor to be warned, yes or no? It's his decision, not the marketplace decision. NASDAQ, from which you are buying the stocks, is not at all involved in the decision board of the companies who are listed in the market. And it's the same for us. We are not involved in the decision of releasing the vulnerability to the vendor or not. It's a task that belongs to the person who discovered the vulnerabilities. Eventually, if such person will tell us, okay, I want to put the vulnerability on the market, and I also want to warn the vendor, I know anyway that it will take some months until the patch will be eventually released, so I can still market my discovery, then we will warn the vendor. We will just follow the instruction of the owner of the intellectual property of the research, because this is what the market is. It's a place through which the intellectual property of the security researchers can be traded. So our role, it is just to provide the space. As I told you, we were working for nearly 1 year with lawyers. And it's really a gray area. I have a lot of people, I know a lot of people, and one is just in front of me, who told me, I had a similar idea a few years ago, but I didn't do it. And most of them, when you ask, well, why you didn't do it? I was afraid. The same tipping point published on their own blog paper a few days ago, in which they're saying, we had the same idea a few years ago, but we didn't do it. We were afraid of the legal implication. What kind of problem can you see? Well, a lot of problems. For example, depending from country to country, you can be accused, if you are both WabiSabiLabi, so the marketplace, or the researcher, of illegal possession of access code. This is, for example, a law which is present in Italy, or in Germany. It sounds crazy to me, because it's actually, if you are a good guy, you're using such tool for security purposes, so you're doing penetration tests. You don't do with criminal purposes. I have a very nice piece of paper. In the last years, I was very much interested in the electronic jihad. I published a book on cyber warfare, and I had in my hand a copy of the Al-Qaeda manual, in which it is written that you can kill a person with a spoon or with a pen. And there is the instruction how to kill a person using the spoon, a teaspoon, or a pen. Now, when you go to buy a pen, under this law, the person who is selling you the pen should actually test you. Are you entitled to own a pen or not? Because you can kill a person with a pen. You can put it in the eye orbit and just by pressing it with the palm of your hand, you hit the brain, and the subject will die immediately. So it's really dangerous to possess a pen. And the same is for security codes, for vulnerabilities. Depending what you want to do, if you are a criminal guy, you can do crimes with vulnerability or with a pen. But if you are a normal person, you are supposed to buy a security research for security purposes. You are a security company and you want to do penetration testing. Full stop. That's it. There is nothing bad in possessing a piece of code related to a vulnerability. Always in my country, wrongful purchase. It is like when you meet somebody on the street and this person is selling you a bicycle at a very good price. And then you decide to buy this bicycle. You don't know this person, but he wants to sell you a bicycle. You find the price very attractive and you buy the bicycle. And then you find eventually later that the bicycle was stolen. Well, under Italian law, for example, you are part of the crime. It's called wrongful purchase. Possession of stolen goods. Why? If you take an open source code, no problem. We have no problems for such a marketplace for open source codes. Most of the problems are coming from the closed source codes. If you have a closed source system, then you might want to do some reverse engineering to understand where the vulnerability is. In such way, you are violating let's say, the property of the software owner. You're not entitled to do that. You're stealing part of the intellectual property, and that's a crime. Money laundering. We have a marketplace. We are receiving security research from somebody, and we are paying the discoverer using the money which is coming from the buyer. If the good it is considered under the law a stolen good, then also the marketplace in which the goods is traded is criminal of money laundering. Then property theft, reverse engineering, pure reverse engineering. In some countries, doesn't matter. You can be accused of reverse engineering if you were discovering a vulnerabilities, which is quite interesting because it's really tricky to demonstrate that you found the vulnerability by reverse engineering. The vulnerability can be discovered in several ways, but they can take you to the court in the meantime, and you have to pay the lawyers and so on. Terrorism. If somebody was purchasing from your marketplace a piece of code and using this piece of code was doing something bad, you will be part of the plot, of the evil plot. It's like accusing the person who was selling the pen to the terrorist, who later was using the pen to kill somebody. But still the law, it is in such a way that you might be accused as well. And wrong use of end-user license agreement. You received your copy of operating system in license. You don't own it. You don't have the right to use it for purposes different from the purposes stated in the license. And in the license, it is not stated that you can use the operating system to do security research. So they can sue you. Blackmailing, I was explaining you before, you can be sued because you are doing this because you want to force the software producer to pay the security research. Nobody wants to force anybody, of course. Even if, in my own view, it would be quite normal that the software producer at the end would be the one who would buy exclusively the vulnerability, because it should be a cost accounted in the normal research and development process and cost in the budget of the software producer. They didn't do it before, securing the software. They wanted to sell it vulnerable, fine. But then who should then carry the expenses of securing the software? The customers? No, my friend. It should be the software producer. In this sense, we have a very old law concept, law concept, coming from the Latin, Romans, called caveat emptor, which was saying, basically, let the buyer beware. You buy it at your own risk. When you buy the software, there is always the clause, you buy it as is. We warn you, you buy it as is. It's your problem if it doesn't work. Since maybe a few decades, in the whole industry of the goods which are produced in the world, the guarantees have been applied in such a way that anyway the producers of anything is liable if that thing doesn't work. You buy that camera, and the camera producer, if the camera is carrying any defect, they have to fix it. And they are liable for malfunction. If the battery is exploding of your cell phone, they will pay you. You can sue them. Not in the software industry. In the software industry, you pay for something which is licensed, but what happens, it's your problem, which is very strange. Always talking about caveat emptor, if you watch on Wikipedia, you can see that the buyer could not recover from the seller for defects on the property that render the property unfit for ordinary purposes. The only exception was if the seller actively concealed latent defects. What does it mean? Well, I'm selling you a software, but I'm not doing anything to hide the eventual defects. So I cannot be considered really liable. I could be considered liable under the Roman law, of course, if I was hiding the defects. Tell me what is the law against the reverse engineering is. It's exactly this. It's denying you the possibility to look for hidden defects. And that's incredible. And nobody is talking about it. Everybody is accepting it. Only in the software industry. There is no other industry in the world accepting such situation. That must be changed. We should turn into the Latin concept of the caveat venditor, which means the seller is forced to take responsibility for the products they are selling and discourages sellers from selling products of unreasonable quality. We would be without operating systems today if such thing, let's say commercial operating system, if such thing would be in place, enforced. Because they're all defective. No, I remember I have a Mac OS X, and everybody was saying a couple of years ago, oh, it's perfect. Yes, my S is perfect. As soon as the hacker community was starting to look into it, they found as many vulnerabilities as in Windows. And you buy this operating system, even if it's based on open source code. Now, I already told you the amletic dilemma, to disclose or not to disclose. I anticipate these slides. We decided not to disclose unless the security researcher, who is the real owner of the property, which is the security research, intellectual property, will tell us to go to the security vendor, to the software vendor, and inform the vendor about the vulnerability. In which case, in our marketplace, we will tell to the people, you are going to buy something, some vulnerabilities, and the information on such vulnerabilities has been transferred also to the vendor. So you have to know that the life cycle of this vulnerability, it is definitely smaller than the life cycle of a vulnerability which was not disclosed to the vendor. What did we do in the first 3 months of our activity? Well, we went to vacation, definitely. So instead of 3 months, I would talk about 2 months. In the first 2 months of real activity, since we opened the website, we had a very good surprise. Nearly 1,000 people registered to the website. You can visit the website freely. You don't need to register. But 1,000 people that were registering, both buyers and sellers. Of course, more sellers than buyers. And we received nearly 100 zero-day, basically. or proposed vulnerabilities, which is a lot. We didn't expect so much. We were expecting to receive maybe 10, 15, no more. But we received nearly 100, 93 actually, at August 27th. And what kind of vulnerabilities we received? Well, we received web application vulnerabilities. You know, now web application hacking, it's quite common. So a web application vulnerability could be very much effective and could have a big value. Doesn't matter if you just need a browser to do it. The idea of such vulnerability and how to exploit it has a value. And we received 24 of these. 17 vulnerabilities related to Linux, 45 related to Windows and Windows application, 2 related to Mac OS X, and 5 other general vulnerabilities. Like, for example, we received a vulnerability, the new iPhone vulnerability, which is allowing the buyer of the iPhone to unlock the telephone and to use the telephone on different operators than the American one. Well, we tested it works, but we didn't place on the stock market, on the marketplace. We didn't put it on the marketplace because actually we were thinking that's not a vulnerability. It's just a wrong implementation of something, but it's not a software or a hardware vulnerability. It's nice, it's cool. Now I know how to unlock an iPhone. Good. But it cannot be placed on the marketplace. Or some network appliances vulnerabilities, we decided not to place. And we had also 33 invalid or rejected because they couldn't be, for different reasons, placed on the marketplace. We will see some examples. For example, this one. This is related to a case which actually happened to us. A guy came knocking at our door telling, listen, I have a vulnerability that works on most of the online casinos in the world and allows the user to do tricks through which he can gain money. So we were thinking, what is this? Something we should publish or something we should not publish? And of course we decided not to publish it. Why? Because it's not related to a system, particular system, general system, but it's something related to something that has been developed for specific purposes of few organizations and can be really used for criminal purposes. So we told to this guy, listen, we are not interested, it's cool. What we do, we advise you to knock at the door of these online casinos or even to the vendor of such a system and to try to sell your consultancy in a legitimate way rather than try to cash money from selling it to the black market, because I'm quite sure he was thinking to sell it immediately to the black market instead of selling it through our marketplace. Or, for example, a vulnerability to hijack MySpace accounts. How can you sell something like that? I don't think such kind of research should be traded through our marketplace. I think that real legitimate security research should be traded through our marketplace. So I expect in the future that we will reject more and more security research which is not fitting our standards. How did we vet buyers and sellers? It's very simple. Identification. He wants to sell or he wants to buy, for example, vulnerability. Okay, who are you? Tell me your name. He tells my name, his name. Okay, it's not enough. Send me, it can be fake. Send me a copy of your passport. He sends a copy of his passport by fax. Good, the name is the same, but it's not enough. It can be fake. Give me a landline telephone number. He gives me a landline telephone number, and we randomly check if he's available when we want, not when he wants. He answered to the phone. The landline telephone number is working. It's true. The name is the same. The passport copy is consistent to the name. Good. It's not enough. Still, he could make some tricks hooking a landline telephone number to an anonymous cell phone. In the very end, what is happening? It is that In the case he is either a buyer or a seller, he must have a transaction, economical transaction with us. So what we need is, we need to have bank coordinates on the same name of the person in the passport copy. And you know, you cannot open a bank with a fake account. You have to go to the bank. Yes, I know you can, Gaius. Ordinary people, let's say you are extraordinary person, but ordinary people, they don't have the skills to open bank accounts with a fake. I mean, the bank is entitled to identify the person. And we rely on such identification. So if you put all of this together, if you really want to buy from us, you have this hassle of creating fake documentation, fake bank accounts, fake telephone lines. What the hell? Just go on the black market if you want. If you are a criminal guy and you want to buy something anonymously, they will be happy to sell it to you. You don't come to us. I'm sure they're not coming to our marketplace if there is such identification process enforced. And we have it at least. Other vendors, they don't. You subscribe to their own vulnerability sharing club, you pay 50,000 bucks, and they're happy to give it to you as many vulnerabilities as you want. Doesn't matter what it's stated on the newspaper. They're working for a budget, and they're happy to cash, full stop. So, but we vetted already people who were sending us fake documentation, and we were seeing it. Now, we have a few minutes left, 4 minutes.
We're out of time.
Because I started 10.
We have time for questions too.
Okay, so very quickly, how is the relationship with vendors? Well, this picture, it is how we wish the relationship with vendors was. No, quite friendly, but actually it's like this. Vendors are so far watching us, taking contact with us, officially saying we will never buy from such a marketplace, but on the other side, they are inviting us to conferences, they are offering us a beer, so we will see what will happen in the future. Of course, we will be very happy to cooperate with vendors, but we cannot initiate the process. We would be accused of blackmailing, so we won't do it by ourselves, but we welcome the vendors to do it. And what we did in these months, we were establishing alliances with private security researchers, with security companies, which are doing research, with hardware manufacturers. We will come out soon with a press release related to some hardware we are going to produce. Consultancy companies that are willing to base their services on the vulnerabilities which is passing through the marketplace, and the vulnerability researchers will cash out of this, of course. And competitors. Some of the competitors, potential competitors, they turned to us into a positive approach, and they try to find a way to cooperate. And of course, we are very open to cooperate with everybody. The last slide. What we wish for the future. You know, I usually do this trick, what is this? In my lectures, in my speeches, and the people are saying, oh, this is a network card. And then I ask, how do you know it's a network card? Oh, there is the plug here. Okay, but if you take away the plug, do you recognize it's a network card? Of course, no. It's just a bunch of hardware. So the thing is that you think it's a network card, but it could be embedding any sort of spying hardware and software. After all, it's a computer itself. It has a chip, it has a functionality, and so on. What does it mean? We are used to buy and to use things, maybe to manage our critical data, and those things are not open sourced. We don't know what's inside. So what we wished in the future, and I'm talking especially to companies like Microsoft, I would like to see open source software and hardware, even Microsoft software. After all, what's the problem? It's patented. If it is patented, it's protected. There is no need to have closed source. And there is no need to sue the person who is doing reverse engineering. If it's patented, it doesn't have any sense. And this would, if software and hardware companies would adopt such practice, would actually eliminate most of the troubles you have in the software/hardware security market. Anyway, enough of time. Time for questions.
I am sure the audience do have questions, and while we are limited in time, we will allow 2 questions, Roberto?
Two questions.
Out of which the better one will get an antivirus
software.
kit. Any questions from the floor?
Questions?
Thomas.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You mentioned just now
I don't hear you.
You can't hear me. Hello. Is it better? Okay. You said earlier that you take a lot of trouble in verifying both the buyer's and the seller's identity. You talk about bank account information, name, landline, and all those details. What do you do with all those information that you collect?
What do we do?
Yeah.
We
What
keep
do you
it.
really do with that?
There is one person in the company whose task is to verify this information and to keep it. I give you an example. It was a journalist today who wanted an interview from me, and this journalist was asking me, how many security researches did you receive in the last week? And I wasn't able to answer because I'm not the guy in the company who has such information. So what we did, we divided precisely in the company the task of the people. I don't know anything about security research. I don't own any single of the exploits, and I don't own any information of the people who are sending the details. So it's the same for all the company's people. Only one person is entitled to manage such data.
No, I mean those information that you collected from the buyers and sellers, the identity of the buyers, the identity of the sellers. What do you, when I said you, I mean your company, WabiSabiLabi. What do you do with those information collected about the buyers and sellers?
We store it.
You what?
Store it. We store it.
You store it?
Store it. We store it electronically. There is let's say, I don't give you details for security reasons, of course, but we need to keep it, such information, because we need to demonstrate to the authorities, in case there is a problem, that we did our best to identify the people. So such information is kept in our database, but not released to anyone, unless it's really necessary.
Thank you, Roberto. One last question from the floor. Quick one, yes?
I saw a lot of the legal issues you had, and I think they're all going to be potentially problematic, but I also see that there's a potentially very profitable niche in the industry down the road. One thing you didn't touch upon that I was thinking about was a lot of security researchers are not really independent. They're working for some security company or something like that. And if they're developing this information somehow in conjunction with their work, if this becomes more and more profitable, are the companies that they work for going to be claiming the intellectual property rights to the things you're selling for them?
Yeah, you're right. And this was a problem from our lawyers. And when you initiate the process of cooperation with us, in the agreements that we exchange, you state for every single vulnerability that the owner of such intellectual property, it's you, and during the research of such vulnerability, you weren't acting on behalf of third parties. So it's written in the legal contracts which are exchanged during the process. And there is no other way. I mean, if you buy a car and you sign a contract, who tells to the car seller that you will actually pay for the car, or you will show up and buy? I mean, you rely on contracts. Our society is relied on contracts, NDAs, and so on.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Roberto. Any further questions? Please feel free to approach him during these 2 days. Yeah.
Yes.
I'll let you decide which one had a better question. So.
Actually, I prefer the first one, in the sense that it touched a very important point.
All right. Okay, Thomas, this will be yours. I'll pass it to you shortly. Yeah. In the meantime, again, thank you very much, Mr.
You're
Roberto
welcome. Thank you.
Preatoni. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we'll move immediately to the next presentation by Mr. Frank Ranfan. Give him a few minutes to actually set up the equipment, and we will kickstart right away. Thank you very much. Be right with you.